Hey, holy people, we are back with another episode. And this is a real treat. I'm telling y'all, whatever you're doing, stop what you're doing, honey, get to your destination, hurry on up because you are not going to want to miss one single word of this conversation. To ground us before we get started, I am reading out of Romans 12:12 from the NIV version, and it states, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." So the thought today is, this sounds nice, but the transformation process is hard. It is necessary, absolutely, but it is very, very hard. And it might just be that we're not able to discern God's will for us, his good, pleasing, and perfect will for our life, because we have not been or are currently not in the process of being transformed, and our minds have not yet been renewed. So today, I have brought on the one, the only, the Leah Nicole Wiggs. I had the pleasure of getting to know Leah when I worked in North Carolina, when we both were working in housing at NC State. And she provided a community for me that I absolutely needed when I felt very isolated, very vulnerable, when I was questioning my identity, when I was trying to figure out my purpose for what God has for me, because the reality is I was experiencing a lot of dark things while I was in North Carolina. It was not easy to go through that master's program for a lot of reasons outside of academics. But she was a constant. She was a constant person that was there, that literally was like a big sister to me. And she was also navigating a lot of different things that God was calling her to at that moment. And so I had a firsthand look at witnessing her tensions between doing what's comfortable and doing what you're called to be doing. And so since then, she has devoted herself fully to being a disruptive life coach. She is a powerful empowerment speaker. She curates retreats. She is a consultant. Honey, she's everything. At this point, we just gonna say she's a daughter of the Most High with a sword and a seed. You can find her on all the socials, the Leah Nicole Wiggs, and she also has a website, theleahnicolewiggs.com. I suggest you write it down because I promise after hearing her talk about the importance of being transformed and the importance of finding and being rooted in your identity in Christ, baby, you need to go on and just book that appointment, honey. Book that consultant, book that retreat. Go ahead. Don't even say that I ain't told you in advance. So without further ado, here is my wonderful catch-up conversation with the Leah Nicole. But when I tell you that, so we had this mentorship program at my job, and it's essentially specifically for women, and they pair you up with all of these, like there's deans, there's presidents, there's VPs, like all this stuff, right? So I got paired up with a dean from another college. So our one college is in a district of 10 colleges. It's nice. But she was amazing, like amazing. All the things connected me. She wasn't a Black woman, but she definitely understood the value in some of the questions I was asking. Was like, I can't answer this. So she connected me with other people. So between her and my boss and the VP, who is a Black woman, she connected me with, they're all like, Miyah, you're going to be like a VP president. Like it's there. And I was like, can y'all stop saying that? Because I really, if it looked like what it looked like right now and it ain't changed, that ain't me, baby. I don't know what I'm going to be doing, but that ain't, y'all can stop saying that. And and then our dean at our college has said the same thing. And I was just like, Lord, I don't know if this is what you want me to do. Like, maybe it is, but I ain't feeling it right now. Like, higher ed is a hot mess. Like, what are you actually doing right now? So those are my questions. I feel like as a result of that, because I haven't come to the realization that maybe that might be, what I need to do or reality. I don't know. Anytime it comes time for me to like look for another job and move to another position, I'm just in this denial stage. Like, this ain't it.
What are you doing right now? What's your role right now?
Ooh. So am
I
a
know what the title says, but what are you actually doing? Because that's half the
child,
time.
everything, literally everything. No, I'm not even joking. So I'm in our early college outreach and recruitment office. I'm supposed to oversee a scholarship program for high school students to take college classes. And I do. I do that, do all the things, right? Department of one. But
Yeah, that
our
line.
department does all the other things: dual enrollment, concurrent enrollment, special admissions, all the thing, recruitment. And so my boss, she's amazing, cross trains us and everything. So when I tell you one-stop shop, like IT support, admissions, financial aid, in the school doing recruitment, like we literally, like if a student's in front of me, I could do every single thing. I have access to all the things, which is a blessing, right? Because if I do want to move up, it's like I
Hey,
got the
but you're
experience.
right, right.
Exactly. But I just accepted a short-term role, like literally yesterday. What's today? Saturday? Yeah, a short-term role. Thank you. In our career services, career and transfer center. So that's what I will be doing, at least until May. We'll see what happens after that, but it's a mess. It's a mess.
Yeah, that I I I fought it for so long.
Mm,
And I knew. So when we were at NC State, I knew by my third year that the Lord had called me out. I
mm,
was there for 5. I was there for 5, but in the third year, it happened right when I was interviewing and I was now over 2 large RA teams and then also all the grads for both. There are 2 grads from my side and another grad for theirs. It was a lot. It was a lot. And I was doing my job and the assistant director's position. And so when
mhm,
I came for the position to be open and I applied for it as an internal candidate, doing the very things that you're hiring for. And then it gets down to, I don't know if you remember the meeting that I found out that I hadn't gotten the position. I had gone up through
mm-mm,
all, it was in an actual all hands meeting. And I found out that I wasn't the candidate they went with because they said, we've reached out to the candidate and I was like, oh, they haven't reached out to me. And so I was in the back of the room and people were turning around and they're looking at me like, oh, it's not you. Because I was like, oh, no, it's not me. And to sit there
mm.
after having done all the work and
I
they
tell
not
you what,
get
it flip the tables.
correct. Now, I should have just said, that's the Lord saying, hey, 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 I told you this ain't for you.
Mm,
Now, I love my leader coming in. She's amazing. We had a very candid, very straightforward conversation from the very beginning, our first one-on-one. And she was like, listen, I know that I was against you and you've been doing the job that I've come now in to do. I do not want you to feel like you can't tell me change things because you've been running it. I'm going to learn from you. And I had to kindly say, no, ma'am, you're not going to learn from me because I'm not going to teach you when they told you that you are qualified to do it. So I'm going to submit, and whatever you want to do is what I will abide by. Now, that took a lot for me.
mm-hmm.
So glad that the Lord knew she needed to be in that role because what started to take place in the department after that, she was well equipped to handle because I would have been like, oh, y'all tried it. And I ain't the one. But I fought it for so long. And then there was just so much stuff that was happening in the transition. And I was like, oh, probably should get out. But where am I going to go? And so I started thinking about going up to, what was it, Greensboro, UNCG.
Mm,
They had a leadership position that was open. And I was like, yeah, let's get out of housing and res life. Let's go into a leadership office. Let's go into a career center. Like, let's get out of that sector. And the Lord said, no, 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 no. I am calling you high. You've been doing higher education, but I'm calling you to the highest education. And that's the word.
mm,
What?
mm.
I don't want to be a pastor. Don't put that P term on me. Okay?
Amen.
I want to be
Amen.
a VP, not just a P. I would like to be a VP. And the Lord was like, yeah, that's cute. But I called you to shepherd people. And it took me a long time to understand that shepherding people was what I had been doing all along. I just did not want that title, because being a PA and understanding the weight and the late night calls and the visits to hospitals, I was like, and the Lord was like, yeah, I'm calling you to shepherd, but I'm not asking you to look like your daddy. You know, I'm calling you to be a shepherd. I don't want you to look like your dad as a pastor. I am cultivating you in the way that you were designed to lead and shepherd people the way that I've called you. And so I'm glad in my last year, I kind of started branching out and doing my own thing and starting retreats, and started to say, okay, I'm going to be a coach. And I asked my friends kind of like, what would you describe me as? What kind of coach would you? They're like, my husband was the one. He wasn't my husband at the time, but he was like, I would describe you as a disruptor. And I was like, that rings. In my shunana, like that, that rings. And then I put that term before a couple of different people in my family and friends, and they were like, that's it. Cause you do that. You do that. And then I started to realize some people are like, oh, that doesn't always sound all that good. And I'm like, yeah, but we come from the main disruptor. Yeah. And he set some things ablaze. And if things say the same, then what are we really doing? We're not growing.
What did that look like, though? Because in higher ed and in all these positions, like, we got that. Like, we know that inside and out. We know what to expect. But for you to go out and genuinely, like, basically be an entrepreneur, be, you know, you working for yourself, what did that look like with, how am I going to get money? How am I going to be sustained? Where do I even start from here? Like,
and I literally immediately, I'm like, I felt my whole body feel the tension that came with entrepreneurship. It is not for the weak. It is not for the weak. And I think people glamorize it so much because it's like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, I started my own business. But do you see the late nights? Do you see the bills that come in? You got to pay for the Zoom account. You got to pay for the website. You got to, and then you got to figure out Canva and make sure that all your posts are, there's a lot of pieces that have to happen. The transition for me was painful because it was twofold. I was leaving what I felt, I believed I was called to do. And yet trying my best to be obedient to what the Lord had shown me. And when I say shown me, I had dreams. The first retreat I ever did, he showed me what it looked like, and he showed me the women's faces that were going to be around. Now, I was a part of a church in Raleigh, and so most of the women were in my church. And I was like, I don't know if they're going to support this. Yeah. But I'm going to tap them and tell them, this is what I saw, and this is what I want to do. This is my first time ever doing it, and I'm hoping that you all will experience this with me, right? And they all said yes. And so there was a moment in the retreat where I was like, this is what I saw in my dream. Y'all sit me on the couch. But God had to show me that so vividly for me to even trust that I could. You know, in higher ed, you do leadership retreats, you host workshops and train your staff and do all those different things. You're hosting programs. But it was never on me solely. I was always working with people, or, you know.
And you had the budget for it. You had everything was already figured out.
The finance, no. And so you said, I just thought about the blessing. The Lord, he was so intentional. He showed me the dream. And then another friend of mine, he hit me up and was like, hey, I had a dream that I was supposed to send you this amount of money. And to have a friend, one, trust his seeing and his knowing enough. Yeah. He would send me $1,000 to start. Who? How? Who? And first of all, how you balling? Where is that coming from?
What job you got?
Right. What's you doing? But he heard the Lord and he blessed me. And that was the exact amount I had, set a price for the experience, the retreat. I was blessed because I called some of my friends like, hey, I know you're a photographer. I've never done this before, but I would love for you to assist me. I can't pay you all at once, but I can be on a payment plan or whatever. And they're like, girl, the photographer and videographer, she was like, Leah, you've sown so many seeds in my life. How dare I even charge you for this? I'm going to help you get started. And so she came in free. The chef that I had, she was like, just let me know what the menu is, what you're thinking. If you can just buy the food and the groceries, I will cook for free and do all the things. So literally the help that came when God has a vision and he tells you it, he will fund it if necessary. And so I had to trust that it would still go forward. And they all showed up. But this was the hard part. This was the piece that I had to come to grips with. I had a vision of being a VP and helping people see themselves more clearly, change how that side of a house for any institution I would be working at. What I wanted to do was work on identity development and really hone in on getting people and students, not just the students, but the staff as well, to do some self-exploration so we could have more transparent conversations, right? And allow those bridges to be mended and those connections to be had. Not knowing that passion for identity needed to be rooted and grounded in the identity we are in Christ.
Yeah.
And so the very things I had been thinking I wanted to do as a VP, I was now afforded the opportunity to flow how I wanted to and flow with Holy Spirit to say, this is how we move. And this is the tool that I use from higher ed. And this is when I was working with this staff at Duke. Okay, this is what I use. And bringing them together and then going to the word and saying, now, that's what the world calls it. What is your word? How does because your word is the truth and it's always long-standing. So how do I make sure that this is actually rooted in the word of God? Yeah. Where do we see this? And God started highlighting. So it was a transition. The finances still ain't, let's be very clear. The finances are still trying to finance.
I got a 9 to 5 and they still trying.
Listen, okay. But the biggest transition for me was that I was also getting married at the time, and God called me at a time. I'm getting married. You're asking me to leave my job. I'm leaving in May. I get married in May, and my last day was June 1st or something like that. So I get married May 30th, and June 1st, I no longer have a job. To walk into marriage thinking that you coming together with 2 coin bags. And thinking that, and this was a stripping of identity for me. It was a season where God was like, no, I'm going to help you find yourself and ground yourself in me. You can't provide for yourself. You got to depend on your husband. For independent women like myself, I was like, yikes. And to have a husband that was like, I support your vision. I support what you're doing. And I was like, I hear your support, but I am missing my coins. Yeah. I am missing the ability for me to go get my nails and toes done without asking anybody for you to spend some money this way. Like, but it was a stripping in the midst of building. Like, it was a stripping in the midst of God reconstructing who I believed I was, what I thought I needed, and to be in covenant at that time, to know that I was also covered. My husband was like, we can handle it. My salary is enough. I was like, but yeah, I wanted more than enough. And he's like, but isn't this enough? I was like, okay, so I'm just bougie.
See, I need to talk to Mark. It's because, listen, I'm on the other side of that. So Jalen, so this is in the midst of me being pregnant. I think I was in my 2nd trimester. And he was just very flustered with work. He's like, bro, this is not it. This is not what I want to do. Like, I'm not happy going to work. Like, I know that this is what I want to do. I want to, start my clothing brand. I want to be an entrepreneur. And I was like, that's great. I believe in you. I believe in the vision, right? And then one day I came home and he's like, hey, just so you know, put in my 2 weeks. Hold on. I have a baby.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm looking around like, oh,
we got to make this thing work. What do you mean? And so it was a interesting time because my fear was like the first default that came out. Like I was like, we were doing the things. We got married. We got the house. We're both, doing our job. We're breaking the generational curses. And then all of a sudden my like childhood trigger of like, I've seen what it looks like to have a whole lot of money and to still be broke because you're not stewarding over it. So all of a sudden my childhood like trauma like came back and I was like, hold on. I wanted to be, I wanted to live that soft life. Like, baby, don't worry about it. I got it. Like, what you mean? Like, now we ain't, hold on. And to me in my head, I was like, it would make sense. I could see you making this decision if you were already like, if we got the coins coming in and you're like, hey, look, I can't do both. But that's not the reality. Like, we really are starting with a seed, a tiny seed, like
Yeah.
maybe low-key even smaller than the mustard seed. I don't even know if that's possible. Like it started with the seed, and we make this big decision. And so I remember talking to my aunt, because the first time I had that conversation, it ain't go over well. He was like, bro, you don't believe in me. You don't da, da, da. Oh, that's not it. But I realized it was my fear. It was my fear talking. And so I was talking to my aunt about that. And she was like, when you have someone who believes this is what they need to do and they're walking on faith, they understand the risk. They definitely understand that. They don't need somebody to remind them, oh, we got bills, we got XYZ. You need to tread carefully and delicately so that you're not also killing their dream, and that person doesn't feel like they're competing with you. You still want this to be a partnership. Like, you just need to pray. You just need to cover that person. And when I tell you that's hard to this day, it is still hard. And, I have to fight. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to work. You over here, it looked like you living your best life. I know you've been working, but it's like your best life. That's hard.
But what it looked like to my eyeballs right here.
Literally. And so, me and Marcus will have to have that conversation, because it's tough. It's hard. And then, like, it genuinely, like, and I realize that it's a step of faith, because if God showed you everything, if he was like, oh yeah, like, here we are, you ain't missed a bill, you ain't missed, nothing, then we're not walking on faith. Like, then we're still, relying on our own, and we're not relying on him to be the ultimate provider. And so, that's the spot we in right now. And it is tough to be in partnership with someone, believing in their dreams, but also fighting just the reality of what life is, and trusting God to come through on time. Because to me, on time would have been 30 days ago. But
before the baby got here, that would have been on time.
listen. So but I don't think people talk about that enough. And when someone takes that step of faith and you're in covenant with someone, it's also your responsibility as well to ensure, like, I need to make sure your faith is built. I need to make sure that you're making decisions not just off of your will, but God's will. Like, I remember, so the second time I tried to have that conversation, the first time it ain't go well. I was like, ooh, this ain't cute. Second time we had that conversation, I remember my aunt was like, what is your main concern? And I was like, I need to make sure that God told him to walk away from his job, not him. Because what I was hearing was, I don't like my job. I feel frustrated. I felt a lot of eyes. So she was like, then come in and just ask him that question. And if he says God told him that, then that's all you need. You don't need to worry about nothing else. And so I did. I said, listen, I'm going to ask you one thing. Did you pray about this before you made this decision? And do you feel like God told you at this moment to walk away? And he said, yes. And I said, well, it ain't about what I think then. It ain't about what it look like. It ain't going to be pretty, but here we are.
Bold. I hear what you're saying. Let me be very clear. He had faith. Marcus had faith in me. I didn't fully have faith in myself. He had more faith in me to see the vision that I had laid out, but I didn't have faith or trust that I could carry it. And so eventually, because of my personal lack of faith, he was like, all right, you're not pushing and grinding with the person that has passion and a drive. And I was supporting when you had this, like, epiphany, like, God is giving you to die. I was with it.
That's real.
But that ain't happening in month 7, okay? I was enjoying the soft life. I was like, oh man, this is great. I don't have to do nothing. I could watch. Listen, he would go to work in the morning and I'd be in the same clothes when he got home, in the same spot. I ain't brushed my teeth. I ain't changed. No. I was like, he was like, yeah, we're going to have to do something else. And so had to work eventually. So I don't want you to think it's just like, oh yeah, he supported the whole way. I had to get to a place where I really believed in the vision, as well as me just talking about it. Because I could things all day. It's the action and the application of what you say that matters. And so I encourage you, one, I commend you, because to have that honest conversation of, I feel these types of ways. Yes, trauma. Yes, but I really do feel this type of way. To then say, you say God told you, all right, I'm going to trust God and I'm going to move with it. And to still be operating, water walking the whole way. That's a whole nother level. And not everybody experiences moments of trusting God in such like real tangible ways where you the things I see around me do not line up with what I know what
Literally.
said, but the things I see, and I know I'm not supposed to walk by sight, but my eyeballs are open, and it's
Yeah.
hard to
And
close.
I feel like it's even more vulnerable because God didn't tell me that. God didn't come down on my pillow and say, hey, this is what it is. Like, so I'm going based off of a word of somebody else, God. And then the thing is it's so hard because with this new identity of being a mother, you already feel like, Mama Bear Mo, I'm going to do everything. Like, it is what it is. Like, lack of sleep. Hey, welcome here.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And so then the enemy, I feel like, is so like, it's just a perfect avenue for that, for me to try to attack me because it's like, wait a minute. So God told him to take a break from his full-time job to do this. But here you are working, doing a podcast, producing all the things and being a mom. So in my head, I'm like, bro, you could do both. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I got 4 and you got 0. What are we talking about?
yeah. And so I can see how the enemy, like I think about in the Bible about Lot's wife. Like that's what I just keep telling myself. I'm like, I am not trying to be Lot's wife. Like I am not trying to ruin this whole thing for everybody just because I decided, well, let me see what's going on over here. But I can see how the enemy, there is doorways opening that I have to consciously be like, let me check this because my lack of faith could ruin what God has for Jalen, and also knowing that he's the head of our household for our entire family. Like me, my viewpoint of me trying to fix it could very well mess this whole thing up.
Yeah.
I have never been in a position like that ever.
That's wisdom, though, for you to say that, to be like, I see how this actually could play out in the long run. And so I'm clear that even though I don't like this moment, I know that this moment has impact on moments down the line. And so I've got to stand, I've got to sit, I've got to pray, I've got to encourage, I've got to do all the things and not allow the enemy to come in. And like the verse that talks about the little foxes that destroy the vine, it's like that if you aren't careful, you will let things come in. Just say, I know where those entry points could be, and I'm putting a blockade up there. That's bold and that's big.
Listen, it ain't cute over here. It's not cute over here. I don't want people to get the point to be like, oh yeah, she's good. She's just going. No, there's been nights of crying. There's been moments of tension. There's been like, you better not even breathe in free time. Like, there's been moments of that. Very much, but if we
cook you nothing at this point, okay?
Don't clean the bottles.
Nothing. Don't.
Yeah, but so it's like when I say like it's different to do that when you're on your own, but to do that in partnership, being married, I feel it. I feel that because that is tough. So I commend y'all on that too. But at what moment did that click for you where it was like, okay, Lord, I can't see it. And I think I'm hearing like, there were a lot of things that just seemed to be coming like easy, where it was like, okay, I know I'm on the right path because things are moving. But at what point did that click for you where you were like, okay, we made it. Like I could stop being fearful. Like I know this is the confirmation.
Oh man, when did it click? There's so I'm scanning because I'm like, there's so many pieces along the way. When did I solidify that this is where I'm going? Perfect. I had a moment. I was talking on Zoom with 2 friends, and they were like, "Hey, Leah, you've been talking about starting this community of women that you're pouring into. You da da da. When are you going to start it?" And as I almost out of my mouth was like, "Oh, I'll start it next year," and I heard the Lord say, "Tomorrow."
Oh,
okay, tomorrow. This was a Monday, so I was going to be starting on a Tuesday. I was like, that don't even feel right. That's odd. Like you don't start on a Tuesday, and who gonna show up when? Anyway, so I'm battling this thing, but I hear him say, "Don't you say out your mouth next year, tomorrow." And so I was like, and the girl that I was talking to, prophetic anointed woman, she was like, the Lord just told you to start it tomorrow. Did he not? I said, ooh, I almost wanted to be like, no, I didn't hear that. But I was like, yeah. He said tomorrow. She's like, so get on your computer and get the Zoom link. Like, let's go. I heard it. You heard it. Let's ride. I started the next day. And then by the end, I sent out the same text message and just said, hey, the Lord told me to start this space. I don't know what it's going to become. If you want to be a part of it, I asked the Lord in that conversation, like, God, send me the women I need to reach out to. I sent it out to 20 women, and 15 women the next morning showed up. Now, this space is at 5:30 in the morning, 5:30 a.m., and it's called Rise Up. But these women said yes, and I was like blown away. And then I was like, okay, God, now what do I do with the saints? I started doing what I normally do, and it's just reading the word and talking about it and discussing it and coaching in the midst of it. But that moment of obedience rippled into this year of just overflow and distant moments where I would be like, I think I heard the Lord say, go say this to this person. And out of obedience, there would just be things. And so I started that on March 18th of 2023. March 18th. It was a Tuesday. And then by April 1st, I get a phone call from a friend of mine back when we were in UNCW, my undergrad. And she's like, hey, I have a person that's no longer going to be able to attend my retreat. And she specifically wanted to offer up her spot because it was too late, 2 weeks away from the trip. And she was like, she wants to offer up her spot to a Black female Christian. The first person I thought of. I said, awesome. What do I need to pay? And she's like, it's all covered. You just got to buy your flight. Now, this is a $500 retreat. 3,500, 2 zeros. Covered. Then God does, and I promise you, it was like, bop, bop, bop. This was the turning point for me when I knew the Lord was like, I am fully behind this, and I need you to move when I tell you to move. Like, stop second guessing, stop questioning. I am full this, and I'm going to expose you. This was a private island retreat in the British Virgin Islands, for 6 days. And I still had to buy a flight. I happened to tell one of my friends that I had this opportunity and was going to go visit her to take care of her, to go make them dinner. They had just had a baby. And I was like, hey, I'm going to come to your house. I'm going to cook for like enough food for like 3 or 4 days so y'all can just be good. And so I just came over to her house, brought the groceries, started cooking, told her what had happened. And I didn't know this, but by the end of the night, her husband comes home and he's like, hey, so Leah, I heard that you got this opportunity and the Lord has put it on our hearts and we're going to cover your flight. This was all happening in the same 3-day span. So I get the call, opportunity to go. I knew I couldn't afford it if I wanted to go, but I was like, I can't afford that. Then go and pour and be obedient to serve another person in my community. And they say, the Lord told us to buy you a flight. And then they said, we're also supposed to make it first class.
Baby.
Now, Miyah, hear me. I ain't never been first class, but this flight, especially because the trip was happening in another 2 weeks, was about $2,500. And they said, we got that.
Wow.
And I'm like, what is happening? And again, I'm struggling to do retreats and I'm just like, it's going to cost me about $5,000 and I'm scraping and pulling and up. And they sent me to this thing and it was a life-changing moment. But when I came back, I heard the Lord say, now don't you stop, keep going. Now I've exposed you to something greater because I was like, first of all, to be on an island, a woman that's my age, no, she was 32 at the time, 32 years old, you own an island and then you own the property on the, what are you doing? What world? And she's a believer. And that's the other thing. She's a believer. Wow. And I was like, yeah, we serve too big a God to limit what he can do. And I said, I see, God, you're trying to expand what I think and what I believe is possible. When I got back, I kept running Rise Up for the rest of that year. I took a break come January of 2024. I started it again, ran it for 6 months, and then had to take a break again because I was like, man, and the Lord is the reason I'm telling you this is because he keeps tapping on the back of my head. And I said, don't you stop this time. So I got to start again, but I won't be able to stop. I can't hit it, quit it, do it for 5 months. Okay. Take a 3-month hiatus and come back. That's how I've been moving.
I feel that with this podcast. It's been a year, but we're back.
And he's like, yeah, don't stop. I didn't ask you to stop. And there's something about, you asked me the question of when did I know? When did I say, okay, I've accepted this? It was when I had gotten back and the Lord was like, I don't want you to stop because you can't. There are people attached to your obedience. There are people's lives, their families. I mean, the women that I'm able to pour into, to know that there were 2 women in the group that came from the island. They were like, you're on this island and you're getting up early in the morning, you're doing devotionals and you're singing and worshiping and it sounds so beautiful. Do you have a space that you do this? And she was like, one girl wasn't even a believer. And she was like, I'm just Bible curious because you make the Bible sound interesting. And I was like, great. Because I like Old Testament and I like to make it cinematic and come to life. So she was listening to me explain it to somebody else. And she was like, I have never heard somebody talk about the Bible that way. To know that being on the island, she comes into the group and she's Bible curious at first, and then she gets saved.
Yeah.
And she brings her, never been in church, finds a church in her area. She's in Charlotte, brings her babies to church. Wow. And then she's asking in the group, like, man, how do I make an impact with my husband? He's not coming. And I said, don't put pressure. Just keep praying about it. Watch the Lord do what he's going to do. And by the end of 2020, by the end of 20, was it end of 2023 that by the end of 2023, she was saying, my husband has now decided to come to church with us on Sunday. He's not saved yet. And it's like, you just never know I always say this, you never know the ripple effect of your obedience. It feels like it's tugging you or straining you, or it's too much. There are people's lives literally attached to your yes, your go, your continuation, your press through, your perseverance. That's when I knew through that series of events that God was really behind it, and that I needed to stop worrying about how it would look or how I would financially be able. I just needed to be obedient when he said it. And ever since then, opportunity after opportunity, sometimes opportunities I don't always want because I'm just like, I don't want to go teach. Real talk. Sometimes.
It's facts.
Yeah, but obedience has always been better than sacrifice. And I have learned both the good ways and the hard ways to just be obedient, because there's an impact, there's a ripple effect that's behind that one seed of obedience.
Something that stood out to me as you were talking, that I feel like is a process that I think God is trying to undo right now in my life, is I heard you talk about, 1, how much you were in community, and then 2, you letting go of your pride, of your ego, being humble enough to say in conversation with people, give them the real, raw, the vulnerable, hey, this is what's happening. I ain't got it, but hey, this is it. Because I think, and then accepting the help. That's my problem. I feel like people, and I think back to Woman Evolved. I know I had seen you at the last year's Woman Evolved. But that was a ripple effect of, all right, Lord, it's been on my vision board. I would like it. And then Paige had her ministry and she gifted me that ticket. And I was like, all right, that's cute, Lord, but I ain't got a plane ticket, so that's a wrap, right? And then one of my friends sent me, I think it was like $500. She was like, the Lord told me you needed to be there. Like, this is where you need to be. And then I was like, well, I'm pregnant. I can't be, that's too much. Like, it was just I don't want to accept the help. And then my friend giving me that money, I was like, I cannot take that from you. Like, that to me, in my head, in my flesh, I'm like, oh, now I'm going to be in debt to you. Like, I don't want to, because that's how my childhood, right? Back to the childhood traumas, that's how it felt like. I don't want to feel like a handout. It was that pride of like, no, it's okay. It's okay. And she was like, girl, do not send this back to me. And so that's something that I am undoing, because I think it's a perspective change of, I also don't want to be I don't want to be in the way of of their obedience, what that would do to them. If God told them that, listen, me saying no, that's going to block whatever God has for them. but it's also me understanding that we literally are all God's children. And so it's not a handout, it's not a nothing, it's just us being in community the way community should be. And we're going to take care of each other. But sometimes that is so hard to do. One, to ask people, in the most vulnerable way, like, I don't got it, because I think we're trying to put up this facade, this image that we do have it. And then
Yeah.
two, accepting the help, like, when it comes, and being humble enough and letting go of your pride enough to be like, okay, this is what we need to do. So that was powerful for me. I was like, oh, okay, cute check. Heard, Lord.
Heard God. Got it.
Heard.
You said something so intentional, and I didn't realize the power of community. I didn't. Let me be very specific. I didn't realize the power of godly community. I had people, right? But to be with believers and to know that they hear, they see, they discern, they sense, and they're in their word, and they gon' no, that don't sound quite like what we say, what we espouse to believe. Like, no. And having to be, like you said, humble enough to receive a check, receive correction, but also to receive help and understand that that's actually how we're supposed to work. Like,
Yeah.
he designed it, and we fighting against it is actually fighting against the design of heaven. It's like he created us as a body joint. All of that supplies. He's the head, but we need to be connected. I'm grateful now that community exists, and godly community is still something I'm continuing to build, because he also shifted what that looked like for me. Be all Black women. I came from a sorority life, so I wanted it to be what I wanted it to be. And then God was like, yeah, but kingdom don't look like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel you.
That's beautiful. So in your now lovely repertoire of all the things that you've done, honey, coach, disruptive coach, empowerment speaker, retreat consultant, honey, all the things, you're doing all the things now. You are living out what God has called you to do. You made it out of higher ed. Help me, sis. But you made it out of higher ed. So in your experience in working with Christians or working with just people in general, what have you found that makes it so difficult for Christians to walk in that identity? Like, I know you had said that's what you're passionate about is getting them that identity realization and formation rooted in Christ, right? And part of being a disruptive coach is disrupting like some of their old ways of thinking. What do you feel like is the common theme? Like, why is it so difficult for us to step in what God has called us to do?
Such a powerful question. 3 thoughts come to my mind. The first is that we have allowed our environment to dictate how we move. That's first. So we've allowed whatever we've been around, the people, the style of engagement, to dictate and determine how we actually move, because there's actually an identity crisis of, I don't know who I am. And so in this environment, we curse. So I curse. In this environment, we drink, we smoke weed. And so I'm telling my testimony. But yes, we do these things because I'm so badly want to invite or be accepted in this environment. I fit what I see. Instead of being set apart and being okay with not fitting. It's very difficult when you are brought up in a Western society and your responsibility is to conform. You go through school and you're taught how to, yes, stand out by playing sports or getting the right grade, but technically we all operate the same. We're all striving to get the grade. We all go to the next grade. We all strive to do that. So when you succumb to the identity of the environment and don't think that you have the ability or have permission to step outside of that, that's a hindrance. It keeps you locked into an identity that may not actually be yours. Second thing I think that I see most often is there's a disconnect between what we believe we can achieve and what God has actually declared that you can. And so this limited, small, not enough, there's not enough, and I'm not enough type of mentality, when we have an identity that actually is disconnected from the truth of God's word because we don't know it or we don't believe it. We may know it, but we don't believe it. Or we may not even be aware of it. That disconnect, again, keeps us in an identity that says anything that I think is really the truth. And typically, thoughts can come from anywhere. They're not always from you. And so I've learned that the cycle that most people are going through is that they're accustomed to hearing things. And I'm always asking when I'm coaching people, like, who first said that? You said that as if it's a stamp of like, this is definitive. But where did that come from? And because we don't know what thoughts we are actually subscribing to on a regular basis, and we don't know where they came from, we accept the identity or the mindset that this is all I can be. And so then I'm like, soul work, I say the definition of soul work is the contention between two opposing forces vying for the seat of one mind. It's really spiritual warfare, but soul work, it's behind your will and your emotions. They are not just yours. They can be influenced by two. There's only two, light and dark. That's the only two opposing forces, right? And so they are both vying for the seat of this mind, and from your mind and from your thoughts and from the heart and all those things then comes out your mouth. But sitting here. And so I think there's this disconnect between the truth of what God has declared and what we have subscribed and believed because that's what people have said. I think the third, there's two that I'm thinking, but I'm like, which one do I see most common? If we were to actually believe in what we dream we could be, if we could believe it, not just talk about it, not just write it out on paper, but if we believed it, if we actually had the belief of it, it would be easier for us to move. What I find is belief place is not deep. It ain't. It's not deep enough. We don't believe fully. Most of the time, people believe so much for everybody else. It's that personal belief that I'm in that equation too. That he'll do it for me too. Working on people's real belief system, and a belief system is really your routine. It stems from what you're doing on a regular basis. Because if I believe that I could lose 20 pounds, come on, Jesus, give me the help me, Lord. Right, help me. If I could believe that, then what I really would do is have actions that support that belief. So often I'm always like, you say that you believe it, but show me where your actions move in that direction of that belief. So when people start to recognize, oh, my actions, my day-to-day movements, what comes out of my mouth actually don't align with what I say and espouse or what I say I believe, we got to go back and look at what we are doing. And people don't want to talk about it because that's work. To address the things you're actually doing on a regular basis. So 3 things I think people struggle with in identity solidification in Christ Jesus specifically is 1, understanding that this is what God has said. 2, understanding that your environment does have impact on how you move. So what needs to change? And then you personally, self-leadership, your actions need to align with what you actually espouse your belief to be. And so the work of that means I got to change my circle. It means the routine and the cycle of me getting up and automatically starting to scroll, I'm going to have to break some things. And that's where the disruptive work starts to begin. It's like, some things have got to change. And
absolutely,
but you're going to have to move different too.
Mm. Well, thank you for that, Chin Check. I just noted, heard, I,
and that, well, can I just say that doesn't happen overnight? Let's be clear.
No, yeah.
That's an ongoing self-awareness. Because baby, I am not always, there are times when I find myself in environments and I'm like, oh, I should not be here. How did I get here? Something snuck in and I moved left and I need to make my little biscuit hit over this way.
Listen.
Out of the right, I'm not in the right environment. So it is a thing, okay?
I feel that. I feel it. What I had thought about though was something that I have consistently said like on this podcast and just in me reflecting and thinking and having those seasons where I'm like, I'm really, really on fire for God. And then, I pause. Why release the episode? Okay, let me come back. Is I've said it all the time, like my faith in God has not wavered. Like it's been, it's there. It's not that I don't believe in God. It's not that I don't have faith, but my discipline to open the devotional, to read the Bible, to pray as often or if not more than I'm worrying, that is what has been fluctuating. And that's what I find myself checking myself on often of like, girl, when is the last time you actually like tried to receive some new information or a new word from God? And I'm realizing as I'm hearing you is that in that belief system and in the things that we're doing, sometimes I'm on autopilot from yesterday's belief. Like I'm not even giving God the opportunity to instill like new belief in me. So yeah, I'm believing him for the podcast for what he told me that vision was last year, but I haven't been talking with him, communing with him enough for him to instill in me and increase my belief for what he wants to do this year. So I'm thinking, oh yeah, I'm riding off the seed God gave me, but it's already an outdated version. It's like reminding me like all these updates we got from the iPhone, like guys trying to download new software, new belief in you. You over here, you ain't plugged in your phone. You literally have not plugged in your phone, and you can't handle it.
Woo, that's good.
So yeah, thank you for that check. I shall open this Bible as soon as I get off the call and repent.
Yeah,
I love that.
All of us do. All of us need.
Genuinely. So I want to give you some time to share with the people, one, about your trip in Portugal that you were so excited about, but then also give us a preview of and expound a little bit more about the Rise Up community, about your retreat coming up, and what people can continue to expect from you.
Awesome. What? So one, Lisbon was supposed to be, or it was a mystery birthday trip from one of my best friends. I've known her since I was 13. She had a milestone birthday at the age of 35. She had said at the age of 34 in December, she had a meeting with all of us and said, hey, in 2024, I've got certain events that I'm going to be doing to celebrate 35. You don't have to go to all of them. You can just, I'm letting you know what it's going to be. You can pick which one. And her birthday is actually in February, but we went in August for Lisbon. And so I was like, yo, payment plan me and I'm going out the country with you, right? So mystery trip, meaning that we don't know where we're staying, where we're going to be, what the excursions are going to be. We don't know none of that. We are sent. Wow. We didn't even know where we were going originally. We were given an email that said you need to book a flight to Lisbon, Portugal. That was the first one. Then we got a packing list and it just said, hey, you're going to need this many bathing suits. You're probably going to need some hiking shoes. You're going to need, but we don't know nothing. We just got to get to the airport by a specific time, land, and then eventually we'll get the rest of the itinerary. So really, really walking in faith. Like we're going to have a girls trip and we don't know exactly. And we may not stay in Lisbon. We may be flying somewhere else. Like
I know Marcus was like, hold on, Dad, I need you to share your location with me because what we not going to do is something happened and I don't know nothing.
Correct. But he's like, okay, it's a whole bunch of Christian women. Y'all all going. Okay, y'all covered. All right. So we get there and it's a 6-day trip. We get there at the airport. They give us our envelopes. We open it all together and we see the rest of the itinerary. All the fun things. Great. Get in the car. We go to our first Airbnb. Cute, almost like boho style type of Airbnb. And it's in Lisbon, the roads and the buildings very much mirror San Francisco. If you've ever been to San Francisco, lots of hills, very tiny streets, very hilly and cobblestoney. That's kind of what it looked like. So we spent 2 days there, had a great time. The third day, the morning of the third day, we were scheduled to have a photo shoot. And so we had a makeup artist and a hairstylist arrive to the Airbnb that morning. And so we were all scheduled to get our makeup and hair done or whatever. We're supposed to be out of the house by 10 a.m. And it's my responsibility I'm on the schedule to go first. So I was up like 6 o'clock in the morning, face is done by 7. And so I'm chilling, I'm eating breakfast, whatever. But I was like, let me go ahead and start making my way down and pack my bag and make sure that I'm ready to go. Because we were on the 3rd floor of this very, very steep staircase and it was very tight. And so it was a struggle to get the bags up there.
Oh my Lord.
Struggle. So I was like, let me just go ahead and start to move my stuff down. I have a 60-pound hard shell black suitcase and I'm toting it down round 1. I was like, all right, let's bring this down. And I put my luggage outside the front door, left the door open, cobble street. It's only 9 o'clock in the morning, 9:15 or whatever in the morning. Dropped my luggage there. I laid my jean jacket over it, left the door open. I go hike that 3 flight of stairs back up. I go get my backpack and I help another girl bring her duffel bag down. Now, back down this tiny, tight stairwell, get down, patting my head trying to make sure I am messing up my makeup. I step outside with my backpack and my other friend's luggage or her carry-on, and my luggage is no longer it's no longer there. Okay. So it's gone. Miyah, when I say my mentor, my coach, because I believe all coaches need coaches. You can't just be out here telling other people what to do and you ain't got somebody in your ear checking your lives. My coach has always taught me, feel the feeling, but choose the behavior, right? Be okay that that's the emotion that you're feeling, but you still have an opportunity to respond differently because you get to choose.
Right.
Bag is gone. All my clothes, bathing suits, heels, makeup bag, jewelry, purses, all the things in that suitcase.
Man.
Bag is gone. But they were so kind to leave my jean jacket.
It's like, we don't need this. It's too hot.
We don't need this. We don't want this. But just to make it clear, yes, your bag is gone. Yes, we took it. But you can have the jean jacket. That ain't gonna fit me. Okay.
Wow.
So I'm there. I'm holding the duffel bag. I got my backpack on, and that's my carry-on, my backpack. And I immediately, and this is when I know I'm growing, I immediately went in tongues. And I said, okay, in tongues, I'm praying. I'm like, God, what do I do? I don't want to respond poorly. What do I do? And I heard the Lord say, you have everything you need. I thought, that can't be the Lord because I'm so
swimsuit. Lord, wait a minute.
Don't have anything with me. So no, I don't. I don't know how I have everything I need, and I'm telling you that my bag is full in house, way. But I pray again, and I hear him say it again. You have everything you need. So I'm like, okay, let me take inventory of what I actually have. In my backpack, I had my passport, the charger to my phone. I had the jean jacket. I had a travel size toothpaste and deodorant in my bag. I had everything in my wallet. Nobody could use any money, right? I'm financially stable that I can actually buy whatever I need while I'm here for the rest of the trip. And so God was like, hey, you have everything you need. And so then I just started worshiping. Now, again, this is a testimony because I know the old me would have freaked out.
Man.
Freaked out, and words would have been flying out of my face that are not holy. Okay. And instead of me running up and down this cobblestone and trying to knock on doors and be like, because at this point, they know this building. They know it's an Airbnb. They scouting it. It is, you know what I'm saying? But for me to start worshiping and for my first response to be prayer and then praise, I knew that was a shift in me because I was like, I don't have a pair of drawers for the rest of this trip, but I'm going to worship him anyway, right? And so the other girls are coming down. I'm speaking in tongues. I'm worshiping. There's a song that's been on my heart. Ooh, this song, and it's been getting me through. It's called "More" by Forest City Worship. And it's the chorus is what I just started singing the chorus. It says, uh, "Oh Father, bring it to me. You're doing more, 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 more than I see and more than I know. 'Cause you are more, 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 more than I see and more than I know. You're doing more than I can see, more than I know, because you are more than I can see, more than." So I'm singing that, and the girls are like, "What's going on? What's happening?" Because when I say I am singing it to make sure that those are the words coming out of my mouth, they were like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "Someone stole my bag, but it's gonna be all right." And they're like, "No, what?" Now they were like, "Oh no!" They started running up the sidewalk. Every girl that's coming down, because again, we're getting ready to leave for a photo shoot, and they're all coming down, each of them freaking out. And I was like, "Hey, stop! We're not going to do this. I already have everything I need, and anything I need, I can get. So I'll be fine." They're like, "You're not crying, you're not frustrated." I said, "No, can't do it, won't do it, because God's too good, and I can get back home to my husband, and that's really all that matters to me at this point, right?" So then I tell them, "Hey, we're not going to tell my best friend, her name is Krista," and I was like, "We're not telling Krista that my bag is stolen. She's still upstairs getting her makeup done. She was the last one." And they were like, "What? We got to tell her. We got to." I said, "No, because this is her birthday, and this is her photo shoot. This is the middle of the trip. I don't want that to be on her mind, because I know she cares for me. I know she loves me. I don't want her photo shoot to be ruined because of something."
Right.
Doesn't matter. The Lord has already made it clear I have everything I need. So they're upset with me, arguing with me, and I'm like, "Y'all, we're not doing it. I'll tell her when I feel like the time is right. But right now, I need y'all to get your lives and act like everything is Gucci, because I'm Gucci. And we're going to go and do this photo shoot." So after the photo shoot, I fill her in. And she was like, "Leah, thank you for knowing me and loving me enough to keep that so that this moment could still be." I said, "Girl, yeah, because what was I going to do? Tell you, and then what are we going to do? Go looking for a bag? No, we're not." But this is what makes the trip even better. Not just me recognizing that I responded in a way that I know tells me myself grown. Because sometimes, people will say, "Oh my gosh, you're growing," and da-da-da. But when you have a moment where you could have responded differently,
Right.
that for me helped me to say, "Ah, God, I see you shifting me. I may not always feel like I'm moving forward, or I may not always feel like I'm hitting the mark all the time, but this is a moment I'm clear." My response was different. I had the feeling, fear, frustration, speak, like, all the things, but I chose how I was going to respond. I chose my behavior. For the rest of the trip, every last woman on that trip was able to, clearly, because we overpack all the time. I had bathing suits, I had cover-ups, I had a dress for the boat ride. I had somebody was my own skin complexion, and she was like, "Girl, you can use my makeup. I don't care, brushes, all the things. Like, we're not gonna let you look crazy out here for this trip when we know you had your stuff together, you know?" So I didn't have to buy a single thing. Remember, pack a toothbrush, my deodorant. That's all. I didn't have drawers on for the rest of the trip. But I mean, it's Portugal. What you gonna do?
Listen,
Dresses,
Eve
it
ain't
is.
had none either, honey. It's okay.
But I'm like, God really, he's like, not only am I telling you you have everything you need, I'm telling you that you have everyone that you need. Including me, like you. But you have the right people with you as well, that you didn't miss a beat because I told you you have everything you need. I get home, and when I'm telling my husband, because I only called him about it, I think I just told my husband. I didn't want to tell my family and be like, "You ain't never going out of the country ever again." I didn't want that. But I was like, "Babe, I really feel like I've grown. And sometimes I'm questioning whether I have, because I still see the things that I feel like I need to get better and walk more in accordance to God's word." And he's like, "Yeah, Leah, I think you dismiss the changes you've made, the things you know, or the people you've said no to, or you said, listen, our friendship was for that season, but where I'm headed," right? Not paying attention to all of those different movements, talking about that identity piece, right? Changing my environment, saying, that relationship is no more. I got to get off of certain platforms or no longer listen to certain music. Like all those things I had been doing, not thinking that that was really having an impact. And yet, moment when I could have responded poorly, the women in the space, they were like, Leah, we know that you love the Lord because none of us would have responded this way. And what was a blessing to me was I had been getting up like I normally do, 5:30, doing my own devotional time, worshiping and watching the sunrise. Nobody had been doing that with me on the trip. They were like, girl, no, we resting. We're going to sleep. But after that day, for the last 4 days, women would get up one by one, join. God, if this was what this was for, if it was so that somebody could say, oh, I need to get back into this routine. If that's what I had to endure, so somebody else could come and read the devotional that I had in the backpack now. The devotional still in the backpack. Like this is what they needed. The last day we got up in the morning and the whole group was doing devotional that morning.
Wow.
And just crying and God meeting us. And it was just this powerful moment with God. And I was like, God, if you did all that with me, I thank you that you trust me enough with weight or the adversity to make sure that there was a response that was uncommon, that somebody would be able to witness that. I'm grateful for the trip, the experience, the excursions, all that. But I think the biggest thing for me is recognizing that trip was a turning point in me recognizing you're not the same. No, you're not the same that you used to be. So let go of that. You do have a life that is surrendered, even when you feel like you're out of place. You can get back in place. You're not the same.
Yeah.
Wrong. So for me, is that I needed to know that. I needed to know that God was highlighting. Yeah, you're not as far off as you may think.
That's powerful. That even when we think that we've gone too far off the edge, that God loves us enough to remind us that he still loves us, that he still has us, that he's still covering us. That is, honey, I will admit, if I was on that trip with you, listen, there's no way. I applaud you because I'm not there yet. I am pressing toward the mark, but I also recognize that I probably have that reaction again because what I said, sis has not been doing the devotion. That was a thing that I was doing, and I feel the peace and I feel all the things. And then, like I just get caught up in the day-to-day life of everything that's happening. Here's I gotta do. Oh my goodness, I'm so exhausted. I should have. That I'm like, let me just go ahead and sleep. But
Can I encourage you? Because I hear you.
Encourage me, please, because sis needs it.
Yeah, I hear you saying this as if that's the only way to get back in his presence or to get back in. Jackie Hill Perry said this. I saw this when she was talking about her life looking different when she had children. And she said, I used to be the devotional person, read, journal, do all the Hebrew, Greek, all that. And then I had babies and I could do nothing but sleep and feed my babies and go back to sleep, or go and make myself a sandwich and then go back to sleep. And she said, I felt so bad in that season, like I was disconnected. Let me encourage you that this can be a season where your devotion time can just look different. And if your devotion time is that I'm just going to rest, and Holy Spirit, whatever you need me to have in this moment, I know you can get it to me. If I need to dream it, great. If I just need to rest, then let me do that. But I think not subscribing, yes, I believe in routines and sacred rhythms and doing the things, right? But being okay with shifting or pivoting how that time is spent, if that means you are breastfeeding if that means during that time of you being intimate with your child, and then in that moment, you are also saying, God, thank you for pouring into me, like I'm getting the opportunity to pour into my child, that's enough. Yeah. I don't think putting too much pressure on what it has to look like, instead of letting God just be with you and that be enough, and not counting that as falling short, you're in a different season, baby.
Mm.
You're in a different
Tis a
season.
different season as well. And I feel like we, need different clothes as well for this season.
Yeah, it's a different season. And there are multiple things vying for your attention that are important. God is not, he's not dismissive of that and like, oh my gosh, she ain't making no time for me. Like, he knows his children. Like, he knows what you're. And so I say just relieve a little bit of pressure. It doesn't have to look.
Appreciate that. I really appreciate that. And I do feel like that's part of one of my faults is, again, feeling like I have to be the one to do all the things and pick up all the pieces from all the parts. And so that is something that I feel like God is working with me on. And that's part of me. That's part of why it took so long for me to come back from the podcast. Like, I was not expecting to end the podcast the way I ended. I felt like I was in a groove. I had momentum. And then first trimester, and like, I was like, I just need sleep. Like, I can't do this. I don't even know what my name is right now. Like, I need sleep.
Right.
And so then, so allowing myself to rest, but then also I do recognize that in doing that, there was a lot of negative self-talk of like, well, you can't possibly do this podcast and be a mom at the same time. Like, do you know what's about to come up? And so I let, again, those doorways, the enemy get in and take advantage of what I feel like God was genuinely calling me to do in that moment, to rest. And I wasn't heeding or talking with God to understand what I needed to do, in that moment, or how he was expecting to change me in that moment. And so being in community, right? Like, there was several people from my church that was like, girl, what's going on with this podcast? Like, where is it? And I'm like, I can't do it. I can't. And they're like, no, you can't. It just might be different. Like, you might not be able to, wait 2 days before to do the podcast and I felt so much pressure. The format and the way in which I was doing the podcast before required so much prep. It almost felt like I was preparing for a sermon. And I was like, Lord, I ain't trying to be no pastor. Don't put this on me. This ain't what I'm doing. I'm not preparing no sermon. I'm not trying to do none of that. I felt so much pressure to have the wisdom already to give to people. And then I just had this moment like a few weeks ago where I was just like, maybe this is exactly what God needs for his people to see, that I don't have it all put together. I don't have time to do the prep, that I'm not trying to be perfect, right? I think maybe he wants people to see in this moment the vulnerability. He wants people to see the imperfection. He wants people to see me relying on people, being in community. Like, I'm doing way more interviews than I did before. Like, and it's this organic conversation where it's like, even in just your day-to-day conversation, God is still there and God will still depart wisdom. And I don't need to, it's going to look different than me sitting in front of my Bible being like, all right, Lord, where should I turn to today? Oh, where's the 3 points you want me to deliver to the people today? Right. And it's in a different format. So I feel like I've had that epiphany when it comes to the podcast, but I still feel guilty. I do. I still feel guilty of like, okay, but I ain't, listen, I did this before. And so I received that. And so thank you. I'll work on that, because motherhood, I didn't realize, it definitely unlocked a new level. And I saw your story of you watching your nieces and nephews.
Oh my God.
And I was like, yes. I was like, this is what it looks like. Like, I because it's so normal to me now at this point, I just do the things, worry about the puppy, do all the, that I'm just like, here it is. It's become normal now. But when I see somebody else do it, I'm like, dang, that does look overwhelming. We do a lot. Like, I didn't, I don't realize it. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Oh, God. I keep praying for children. And then there are times that I'm like, oh, my nieces and nephews, that's really neat. I mean, whatever you want to do, Lord, let me just surrender. But I commend you, because I know that motherhood always, like you said, it unlocks another piece in you as a woman, and that there are so many different things that start to change in you, literally hormonally, right? But then also spiritually, like things that you're now awakened to because something that you relate to God in, and having, and then thinking, what would it be like if I actually gave my child up for all you? No. You love me for real, because I don't know if I love the Saints, you know?
Listen.
I am excited for what it is that God's going to do.
Thank
But
you.
just pressure, no pressure.
Thank you.
You asked me what's next.
Yes.
If I'm honest, here's the reality. So I don't think I even said this, and this is probably stuff that you're going to be like, so you actually have a 9-to-5 now? I have a 9-to-5.
Okay.
I have a 9-to-5 now, okay? Remember I was like, my husband was like, we're going to have to come back. So I actually work for a nonprofit organization called the New Hope CDC. HOPE is an acronym that stands for helping help. So, wow, Father, edit that.
I won't do that.
New Hope CDC. HOPE is an acronym, and it stands for helping ordinary people excel. And so we are serving marginalized populations, people in low SES, people that are on Medicaid and things like that. And so I get to pour into people in a very similar way in the way I did in higher education. I'm building and developing staff. And God has afforded me the opportunity to take all the things I did in higher ed and some of the things that I did as a coach or do as a coach and bring that into this environment. And so although I have a 9-to-5, here are the things that outside of the 9-to-5 that I'm now really intentional about being focused on. So the Rise Up community will begin in January of 2025. I wanted to start again, like in November, December, but I actually just want to prepare for what it looks like to not stop this next time.
Yeah.
And so putting it out there, yes, January 2025, we will begin. Most people are like, don't start in January, start in December so that people are rolling. I got lots of family things happening in November, December. That's how. And my dad, being a pastor for 20 years, is his last Sunday will be December 29th. I'm like, let me just make it.
Wow. That's exciting.
It is exciting. And he's the CEO of the business called for the New Hope CDC. So I get to work for my family, but watching him do this dream, that's the beautiful thing about this organization. But for the Rise Up community, Rise Up stands for, it's an acronym. I'm an acronym girl. Rise Up stands for redefining the importance of sonship and sisterhood that is empowered, unchained, and purposeful. That's a long definition, but I think there has to be a redefining of what sonship really is and what sisterhood can really be. What it looks like to be empowered by one another, but also be empowered by the Holy Spirit. And then what it means to be unchained, what things need to be broken off in order for us to all walk in purpose. And so that space, 5:30 in the morning till 7, twice a week. And we just dive in. We dive into the word. We dive into ourselves. There's leadership development. There's emotional intelligence work. There's it's all the things leadership development that we did in higher ed. And it's all things life coaching that I believe I'm called to do. And it's all things sisterhood, because we're all going through different things, as we just talked about. Yeah. And so we just need a space that is authentic. And when I say like I'm not showing up at 5:30 with my head. Y'all gonna see these. Y'all gonna see my bonnet. We all got robes on and our coffee and tea. We ain't got to be glammed up. Not at no 5:30. Don't try it.
Listen, I was thinking of releasing a line of bonnets called the Bonnet of Salvation instead of the Helmet of Salvation.
And I will run because ain't nobody got time. So I make it clear that it's a very vulnerable, authentic space. And if you ain't ready for that, please don't come, because I'm very transparent. And I want the people in the space to feel like they have a room where they can act without all the things. Just be you, right? Yeah. So that's the Rise Up community. It happens every Tuesday and Wednesday, 5:30 in the morning. So that
and that's 5:30 on Eastern time, right?
Yeah. And I have some people. Yeah, that's 5:30 Eastern time. I have a couple people that are Central time. Yeah, and so they're up at 4:30.
Bless their hearts.
Yeah, bless their heart. Because I'm up at 4:30 in prep mode. They're up at 4:30 to be present, and I think that that's just amazing. Again, I don't know why the Lord, he said, rise up. He said, get up in the morning. Ain't nobody got time to be sitting rising up at 10 o'clock at night. Rise up in the morning. Okay. So that's the Rise Up community. My next retreat will actually be taking place in end of March, early April. So I actually need to take some people out of the country.
No.
Yeah, I recognize when it comes to the retreats that I do, there's two different layers. One is called the Made for More retreat, helping women to discover that you actually were created for more. I know that we have a lot of competing hats, but that you can actually spend time away, get away from your regular routine and experience the more that God actually has for you, because you're not inundated with all the things that you have to do. You get some real intentional time where we spend time and let the Holy Spirit have his way. But I don't take it lightly that people come into that space and need a space to breathe. And so there's massages that take place. There's a chef that cooks. There's each woman has their own bedroom and their own bathroom. So they have
That's
the time.
important.
Hello. And it's important because you're not having to share a bed with somebody you don't know and then go to the bathroom and she just finished. And no, I want people to have the experience of more without all of the hats of more that they have. I want them to have that. So that's the Made for More getaway. And that's getting away, literally get away from all the things. And then the Heiress Mentality Retreat is because I'm bougie and like luxury. That's it. That's really it. I mean, I say that's it, but people are like, Leah, it's more than that. But I really am like, when I want women to understand that you are a child of God. And if you understand the magnitude of his majesty and his dominion, and the fact that he has endowed us with that, given us permission, you have to understand how to mentally shift to another level to say, I'm an heir.
Yeah.
Heir of the kingdom. That's huge.
Yeah.
I think women don't have that scope or that lens. And my job is to kind of clear the vision so that people actually see what it means to be an heir to the abundance of heaven. And then what does that also afford us? Now, I'm not saying that you can't be in missionary work and still be an heir of the kingdom. You are, and that's your assignment. But I know that some women have never been out of the country. They've never experienced some of the things that I've been exposed to. And I really believe that exposure presents access. It allows you to think differently and see differently, because if that's the only way we kind of really learn, that's not the only way. Let me say that the better way. The most common way we learn is what we see and what we're exposed to. God can give you vision of something that's not even been established yet, right?
Yeah.
But a very common way is that we have to be exposed to it. And so I got exposed to Black car service. Okay, pick me up. Okay. I've never been the makeup artist person. I got exposed to that and was like, oh, I
you
didn't
just
know
sit in a chair and everybody else do it?
There.
Oh, okay.
And you could be talking and they're still talented enough to capture your lip line. Like it's amazing to me. But those types of luxury treatments, the type of exposure that I've had, I just want to take women to another level. And that be an opportunity where God says, yeah, you're deserving of this experience too. Yes, it's an investment, but it's an investment of a lifetime because you say you never did it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, more to come on that.
That is a beautiful. I remember we was in North Carolina and we were talking about, because I had a mentoring thing when I was in undergrad called the Queen Connection, and then you was like, God just gave me a vision about something with a crown, and I just remember where you were putting together the Heiress retreat, and so that's beautiful. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
The fact that you remember these things is crazy to me, because I promise you when I say I don't remember half of that season of my life. Thank you for bringing that back to mind.
All of that. I mean, you're Leah. What do you mean? You're the one and only. Hello. And I just remember like when we came together, like I was so nervous. I was so nervous going to North Carolina, coming from the West Coast. I was excited to be around family, but it was a whole different, like, it's a very big institution. It was a whole different level of expectation there. I decided like, okay, I'm giving up my dream of being a doctor. I'm going into higher ed, like, you know. And so it was a very vulnerable space for me to be in. I know it looked like I had it all together, but I was really just out here like, okay, we
You
just gonna
know,
do the things. Like I left everything behind, travel, whatever could fit in my car, we're going. And that's what I was worried about. It seemed like everyone in North Carolina had the community. It seemed like everyone there was, you know, going home on the weekends. And I'm like, well, my family's in Las Vegas. I can't do that. I mean, my extended family's in South Carolina, but even that. And so I was worried about that. And so I remember when I think it was Alexis, so she was like, have you Leah? I'm like, no, I haven't. And then I was nervous and I was like, oh Lord, like here's Leah. And then she was like, Lord, she's your story. I was like, oh Jesus, there goes that. And that's a whole nother topic we can get into.
whole other
And I was
topic we
like,
can
oh my
get
God, here we oh
to.
Jesus. I was like, Lord, what do we do? Oh God, okay. And then I just remember us connecting and it was like we were like sisters. I was like it was just this energy. You matched my energy. I was like, oh, she's like me. Like I like it here. I like it here. And
I
so,
like it.
yeah, I remember that because it was, I genuinely, there were some hard moments like while I was there navigating all the things I was navigating. And you constantly provided a space and a community for me. And you didn't have to. You have 50 million other things going on. So, yeah, I will forever remember that.
That makes my heart
Anyway,
happy.
you
That makes
know, we love it. I'm honored to still be in your circle, honey. Here we are.
come on, girl. Ain't going nowhere. Nowhere.
I
And
made the
we
cut.
gotta have to do a part two because that's a whole nother story. Okay.
Alrighty, beautiful people. Well, I hope you enjoyed the just infinite amount of wisdom that came from my good sis, the one, the only, Leah Nicole Wiggs, honey. And she's disrupted several things in my life, and I'm sure that you were touched by that as well. But with that, I want y'all to be you, shine bright, and stay holy. And if that ain't possible,
Baby, take that up with God. You hear me? Take it up with him.
take it up with them. Alrighty.